Welcome back to the Practically Spiritual podcast. This is part 2 of my interview with Rion Smith. If you didn't catch the last episode, definitely go back and listen to that conversation. It's, I think, a really enlightening and just really, relatable conversation that I highly recommend that you go ahead and check out. But this episode is going to be focused around doing a little bit of a reading for Rion, who's prepared some questions so that we can all kind of learn together. So once again, welcome and thank you, Rion.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Again, as I mentioned in the last one, Rion's got us set up in his music studio in his house. So, he's really hosting the space here and is producing such a beautifully put together episode, audio, video, all of that. So, any way that you're perceiving this conversation is all thanks to Rion. So I'm very grateful. So I've already done my tap-in process. And so we're just going to go ahead and open it up to Rion to ask any questions. And as we go through this reading, just know that where we may not necessarily have the exact same life situations going on. I always say it's give a reading, get a reading, and that we all learn better together. So as we're going through this reading, even if you don't necessarily relate to the exact question, just kind of maybe be open-minded about where that energy might play out in your life and how maybe some of the advice or the energy explanations might kind of apply to different areas of your life as well. Because if there's one thing that this profession has taught me, it's that this is such a universal experience, the human experience. And we're all taking different pathways, but a lot of the challenges and the feelings and the energies are literally identical. So
the hero's journey.
Yeah, the hero's journey. And I think the more we embrace we're all on this together and we can learn from how each of us is experiencing it, A, the less alone we feel, which I think is so important, but B, the more it's just normalized where we don't have to judge it so hard.
Yeah.
And we can really learn by being when we're sharing our, this is where I'm struggling, or these are my questions, we're able to hear yeah, me too. And this is what I've figured out. What have you figured out? And then we're able to kind of coalesce I think a more, well-rounded solution or perspective of what it is we might be going through. So again, thank you for using your personal life as fodder for all of our growth and expansion. So whenever you're ready.
Okay. First one's kind of a long thing. So sometimes I've had experiences where this is what I feel is happening. A person that I'm interacting with sees me in a particular way. And because of how they see me, it causes me to act in a way that's more in line with how they see me than how I feel I would normally act in a situation like that. For example, I had an interaction where I felt this person was testing me. I felt like the whole experience from their end was ultimately set up for me to fail. And consequently, I feel like I fell into their trap. Their actions caused me to get reactive, which was what they were looking for in the first place. When they got me to be reactive, then it was like they had won, or at least seen what they were expecting to see, proved their point, and they were essentially done with me. This isn't the first time that I've felt like this has happened. So I would like to be more centered in these situations and not allow other people's views of me to cause me to fall off center so easily. So what are some things I can do to help achieve this?
Yeah. So as soon as you start to ask the question, one thing I feel like they really want to talk about is normalizing that we are affected by the energy of other people around us. And what I want to say is they're just giving me the word awareness is just the key to recognizing where, what they're showing me is a little switch, where a switch goes off and we're I have to act a certain way. And they're saying that's just a practice of bringing ourselves back to, whoa, I noticed that switch or that trigger of feeling, it's funny, just a feeling of being outside of myself. And what they're giving me is one thing that's really important for this conversation is because they're kind of showing it to me as a fishing line that's been cast out and feeling like we can't reel it in. And it just is getting further out. And it's we're seeing it go out, but we don't feel like we can quite reel it in. What they're giving me is that's just our cue, that energy, that feeling of I'm falling into this and I can almost in some ways see and feel that I'm falling into this, but I can't quite reel it back in yet. They're saying that's just that uncomfortable purgatory between having an awareness of something, but not yet fully understanding the energy to where we're able to shift it consciously and we can tend to be really hard and judgmental on ourselves when it's like we can see something happening, but we can't quite intervene yet.
Yeah.
And they're just giving me like, that's such a necessary stage of developing and learning what that energy or that interaction is offering us, because that discomfort and the being able to, like, they're giving me the words like straddle both sides of that energy is what helps us to recognize it in the future and understand which side we might choose to stand on. And I feel like there's a couple different things here. So one thing they're giving me is I was getting a little bit of like an energy of just be aware of when we're choosing to participate in dynamics and what might drive us to choose to participate in a dynamic where someone is asking us to be tested or be proved, or like, and they're saying that's when we come, and what they're showing me is solar plexus. That's when we come back to our own center and our sense of I am, and we can say, I have nothing to prove. And if I am in a space of, and I feel like it's, and they're saying again, it's a practice, like they're going to give some tips and some like ideas of how to interact with this differently. But I feel like the key thing that they're really wanting to bring forward for us here is it's not about judging whether or not we're able to catch it and implement this right away. It's just an over time awareness of like, okay, like I didn't go all the way through that this time. I caught it a little bit before, and that's a win. That's progress, right? Or if we do end up in the same situation again, it's like, okay, well, I'm just solidifying that learning again. But I do feel like they're just giving me, it's a little bit of that, like what we're being mirrored is where we feel like we have to prove something to someone. And so it's when we're coming back to I'm almost hearing like the phrase, like, would I be participating in this? Would I co-sign on this interaction if I felt like I had nothing to prove? And it's kind of reminding me of times like I've had readings before where I've had to kind of like suck it up, and someone's like, you know, shows up for the reading, and once in a blue moon, I'll get crickets, like nothing comes through. And of course, you know, I mentioned in the previous episode, there's this feeling of like, I have to show up and prove that I'm not a fraud.
Right.
But what being in my own integrity looks like is I don't have anything to prove. There's just nothing coming through. And so I have to own, like, I would tell you, and I tell them, like, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, like, and tell you I'm getting something I'm not getting, but I don't feel anything on this. I'm getting crickets, and I just have to trust that that's for a reason. So I'm not going to charge you for this, but I'm just not getting anything. And I'm sorry.
Wow.
Like, and that's such a hard place to be,
Yeah.
but you have to come at it from like, again, it's not that I'm lesser than, it's just, it's not the time, it's not the place, it's not the person, it's whatever. And I feel like they're just kind of saying it's, again, we have to be really in our, like, if would I still be, because what I could do is try and muddle my way through and, you know, pick something out of the ether and like go with like some cookie cutter message that, you know, anybody could relate to, right? But there's something,
it's inauthentic.
It's inauthentic. And I feel like they're just giving me a little bit of like, again, that's why it's so important to tap into that solar plexus energy, is because that's the part of us that goes, I know my worth. And if you don't see it, I don't need to participate in things that undervalue me.
That was a big part of that whole thing.
Yeah, in order to prove that.
Yeah.
And I feel like the main key they're getting is like when we're in those situations, we're not actually trying. This other person is the mirror and the vessel of showing us where we're still feeling the need to prove ourselves to ourselves. And our willingness to participate in dynamics that may not honor us is showing us where we feel like we're not worth that. And I feel like they're saying it's more so about that internal. I do feel like they're just kind of giving me like boundaries would, you know, are definitely the key here of like, you know what, this just, and I feel like they're saying like, we don't necessarily have to understand why something feels fully dishonoring, but it's like, I'm almost kind of getting, I have an aunt who's a massage therapist, and they're giving me her phrase like, I only work on nice people. Like that's a boundary for her. Like if you're a jerk, I don't want you as a client.
Right.
Whereas a lot of us feel the need to sacrifice our mental health or our well-being or our energy in order to appease, again, the projection that someone else might have of us. And I feel like one thing they were giving me with that too, is we kind of, when we go through life, we'll have so much more peace if we understand that no matter how close someone is to us, they will only ever know us as the projection of how they perceive us.
Right.
We are the only people that really know us. And even at that, like we spend this whole life just uncovering layer upon layer upon layer. Like, I don't know very many people that can say like, oh, I 100% know myself. And I'll be honest, if someone says that to me, I'm going to be like, right? Like, I don't know that I trust you because
Right,
you're
right.
not owning that there's still a lot to learn and uncover. So
Right.
I feel like another aspect of this, and I feel like where they're saying it's okay to give yourself permission to set boundaries and go like, that's just not honoring, or something about this feels testing, and I don't really play like that. I'm hearing you either want my skills or you don't.
Right.
You either believe in my ability and that's why you're approaching me for this project, or you don't.
Yeah.
And it's not my job if I'm not a right fit, I'm not a right fit. Again, they're giving me that phrase, like, not my cup of tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, if you're perceiving me as chamomile and I'm, I don't know, what's your favorite tea? Peppermint.
Right, yeah.
It's like, I'm never going to live up to chamomile, and I'm not going to pretend to be chamomile because that's what you're projecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to give myself permission to say, oh, everyone in my life can only perceive me through their own lens of perception that is very drastically colored by their own limited experiences with me. And like, they're not living in my internal world. And like, even the people that live in our homes, they know us much better,
Right.
but they still have a perception of us that's not actually the truth of us.
Right.
No matter how, and it's not that it's that it's like bad. It's just, they'll never fully get us.
Right.
And because I think we're always on that journey of getting ourselves. So I feel like they're saying there's also just this value in allowing space for, like, it doesn't really matter how they perceive me, because it doesn't matter whether they're trying to perceive me positively or negatively. It's never going to be correct. There is no correct outside perception of me, because I'm still refining moment to moment the perception and my relationship to myself.
Right.
And I feel like they're saying there's also some peace in like letting yourself off the hook of like how somebody perceives us, because again, they can be our biggest fan or our biggest critic. I'm hearing like same, like
Right.
It's going to be the same, and it's never going to be an accurate representation of us. But I do feel like it's more of like, if I feel like I'm being tested, why am I playing along? And that's where we can, again, they're saying it's not self-blame. It's just, that's where your power is when I release myself from the thing that says I have to participate in this dynamic that's not honoring me, then I'm able to realign with opportunities that do honor me.
Cool. Yeah. A lot of that totally makes sense. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. There were some other questions that came in, and then I kind of forgot. I lost them.
Well, if they come back up, just bring them up.
Okay. I'd written, am I ignoring signs when something feels off? Yeah, because it was a situation where I didn't feel, and it's crazy you said like either you want my skills or you don't, because I know what it feels like to work with people when they want what I'm giving them. And even in those situations, sometimes it'll be like, yeah, well, that's not quite it. Let's steer it in this direction. And I'm able to do that. And then like, okay, cool. That's it. Mm-hmm. But this one in particular interaction just felt like they were constantly like trying to give up on me or like looking for an excuse. Mm-hmm. To like pull the ripcord and just like, let's cancel it.
And I do think there's a lot of energy there too of like, if that's how someone's showing up, it's never personal to us. It's their own. And what I want to say is a little bit of like, again, knowing what you do for a living, like it's so vulnerable. And what they're bringing to my attention is like, just as vulnerable as it is for you to put something out and to like kind of, and what I want to say is have someone even, I would almost even say they're kind of giving me the energy of like the people who are showing up the most, like, I don't know about you. Like, I feel like they're actually recognizing a talent that they're afraid they won't live up to. Like I almost feel like I feel like they're just wanting to depersonalize it and say a lot of times the people who are questioning us and our greatest critics are actually the people that are threatened by the skill they see in us, which is why they approached us to begin with. And like, they're kind of giving me like, your job is to be the editor, to be the critiquer, to be the person. And so if you're going through it and being like, this isn't right, right? But it's a vulnerable thing to put, as we've talked about your music, like it's vulnerable to put your music out there.
Right.
So I feel like there's also where it's like, we're taking it personally, like, why do you keep wanting to pull out of this? I feel like they're asking to kind of just flip it to like, oh, like this is a very vulnerable space for them.
Right.
And not everyone is handling it gracefully.
Yeah.
But we can sometimes perceive that as like, look, you either want my help or you don't. And there's also the like, you're not quite ready to take a chance on you. And I feel like that might have been more at play than what was noticed. Because again, a lot of what they're giving me is, the more we're aware is that the more people are acting out or exuding an energy, or like what I want to say is pushing an energy outside of their body, whether that's judgment, whether that's bravado, whether that's overconfidence, or like, I just know everything. Like, the more someone's in that space, their true internal space, what they're showing me is just expect that it's polarized. So what someone is displaying outwardly, if it's pretty like down to earth and grounded and all of that, right? They're probably, because it's really hard to, it's not an extreme. So the polarization of that would be pretty, what I want to say is like, not too far off from what you're seeing.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas if there's an extreme projection going on of something outside of someone's self.
Extremely confident.
Then usually the internal is extremely insecure. Right. Which is like what they're giving me is like, most of us are familiar with like narcissistic behavior. Right. It is literally the internal is so not good that the outside has to seem perfect. And so what they're kind of giving me is, if we can kind of monitor like, wow, they're actually showing up really, like they're projecting a lot into the room. It means that they don't feel like they can authentically take up space. But I feel like they're just saying, and there's also the lesson. So it's like, we can look at that and bring compassion to say like, okay, I see where this person is, and that's not about me. And I feel like that they're saying that's a key phrase when it comes to boundaries and how we're perceived by others. It's never about us. Right. It's never about us.
And I was like aware of that and trying to be like, okay, so there's something for me in this.
Yeah.
But, you know, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think they're just giving me the something for you in there was just the like, why am I participating in something that makes me feel like crap?
Right.
Right. And I feel like it's they're saying again, it's like, that's where we learn like, oh, this is when your next question was, you know, am I ignoring red flags? It's like, well, what part of me feels like I have to keep moving forward when something is clearly misaligned for me?
Right.
And that's just an internal question to ask, but I'm just hearing like without judgment.
Right.
That's the key, because they're giving me like judgment and shame are the things that cap out our ability to go any deeper. And when we're in that, we can't see the layer underneath. But that's our ego's mechanism for protecting us from the truth.
I see.
Right. So I feel like they're just saying like, take the judgment out and just ask the question of like, what part of me felt like, and it might be like, because I want my business to thrive. Because I feel like if I'm hard to work with, or if I have high standards for who I work with, I'm limiting my pool, and I want my business to thrive. But it's also like, they're saying, and there's something about being fully in your power and in your alignment and in your truth that actually attracts people to want to work with you. Like, it's like those artists that are very selective about who they work with. Those are the ones that are most sought after.
Right.
But we're taught, when we aren't in a space of really knowing our own value, we feel like we have to like play nice. And I feel like they're just kind of giving me like, we all have that in us. And I feel like some of that energy might have just been working its way out.
I know that for me, that experience reaffirmed or helped reignite the idea that I really want to produce my own stuff so that people are coming to me for that. Because as of now, I haven't really put out the one album, but that's not even me as a drummer or like what I would consider a full music producer, you know, like the other kinds of music that I want to have expression on. And if I start to put out that stuff, then people will be like, oh, that's dope. That's cool. Like, I want to work with this guy because of this.
Yeah.
Whereas right now it's like, they're kind of coming to me because I'm like moldable or, you know, and so I'm kind of undefined in a way. Who is Rion Smith and what's his style of music? Well, nobody can really say because I don't have anything out, you know? So, yeah. And I just feel that there is music in me that wants to get out and born into the world, but I have to do it in order for it to get born, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think this is somewhat related. How do I tell the difference between myself having a negative reaction which is actually unnecessary and not helpful, out of alignment, versus this person coming at me with bad intentions and I'm actually just picking up on that.
Yeah. So as soon as you said that, I feel like they're literally giving me no difference. Like, I feel like they're wanting you to like not try and compartmentalize. It's so I feel like they're saying it's so much more simple, because what they're giving me is that framework leads us to not feeling like we can trust that, as Abraham Hicks calls it, that internal guidance system. But you're feeling some sort of way about it for some reason. And when we're able to go like, I'm feeling that, then it's like the reasons that we're feeling that. And it's like, it's not even about whether or not they're justified. It's just, that's what I'm feeling right now. Right. And so I feel like they're just saying like, it's not even that, because they're saying like, either way, whether it's an outside trigger of like, maybe a boundary has to be set, or maybe there's something going wrong external, or there's an unkind dynamic or interaction, right? Something that would, I feel like they're giving me the stick point is whether or not something requires an action around it. Or if something is just kind of like, what I want to say is like our problem to deal with. And they're just kind of giving me, it's like, regardless of whether or not that action is needed to be taken, it always will start with what's going on in me.
Okay.
And I feel like they're saying, if you can just always go like, oh, those are big feelings. Like, what's going on in me? I feel angry about that. And like and I feel like they're just giving me, again, when we're talking about that judgment and shame being like the thing that keeps us from going deeper, when we're like, wow, that was a big emotion about nothing. We're judging the fact that there was a big emotion. But if we're having that big emotion, it means there's something there.
Right.
And it might be something from the past that's triggering us. And that's coming up to let us know like, hey, like this part of me is still needing some TLC. Right. This part of me is still maybe subconsciously, running the show or making decisions. Or it can say like, and what I want to say is they're giving me an and on this, like, oh, like I'm feeling strongly about that because of this thing that happened in the past. And that as a reference point is telling me that what's happening now doesn't feel good. And that based on what I've already learned about that energy or that feeling or that dynamic, I may want to address it. I may want to keep an eye on it. And I feel like they're saying it's more so about allowing what's going on in us to inform what feels best about whatever it was that triggered us to begin with. But I feel like they're saying when we stop minimizing, because we tend to, and it's funny because they're saying we're doing it both with negative and positive emotions. Like our negative emotions will minimize them as like, I shouldn't be feeling that. That wasn't a big deal. I should just put that in the cloud, like, because we don't want to feel it. The positive emotions will actually, like, let's say, one of my clients, aced a test that was really hard and was like, oh, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Like I just studied and I blah, 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 blah. But like, she's one of 3 people in her class that passed it. But to even celebrate our big emotions and allow those to be fully what they are is something we pull back from, because if we're in that even keel space, if we're kind of numbed out and we're not really fully feeling anything, then we may not feel the high highs, but we also maybe kind of get to disassociate from low lows. And I feel like they're saying when we live in that space, we're not allowing those peaks of emotion to inform us. And it's like when they're low lows, it's saying, hey, something here is asking for some love. But when it's high highs, something in this is saying, keep moving that direction. Something in me is saying like, yes. So I feel like they're saying it's kind of the, again, like it's not a matter of like, if we get really, so they're going to put me on the spot. So like when someone cuts me off in traffic, I get enraged.
Oh,
enraged.
You're one of those.
I am like so here's the thing, as my mentor puts it, like I am secretly the Hulk. Like my secret is I'm always angry. And like, I don't let it come out on people, right? I manage it appropriately, but I'm always mad. And that's something I'm always working on with myself, and like, and not even trying to solve it, but just going like, there's a lot of things that have happened that have created anger, and that all of that anger was actually justified. And now there are all these little triggers in my life that are showing me where I still need to recognize like, man, that situation really made me mad. So when someone cuts me off in traffic, it's such a minor thing. But what it's hitting for me are those deeper themes of I'm not seen. I don't matter as much as that other person. That person can't even consider my safety because they want to get one car ahead.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so like for me, and like, again, I'm noticing, wow, I took that really personal and going like, okay, how many times have I cut someone off in traffic? And that's just not where my mindset is, right? So granting the grace for it's not the situation. However, the feeling of not being seen and of not my safety not being important and me not being valued as an equal human being, those are major triggers for me. So it's showing me like, wow, I'm still kind of working through that. And every time it comes up, even if it's something really stupid that I have no need to take an action with that person around, it's giving me an opportunity to go like, okay, how can I like show up for the part of me that's still hurting around not being seen? How can I help myself be seen? Or when I'm noticing that pop up in my life, like in relationships, like let's say my friend does something, then I might want to have a conversation about, hey, like, I know you don't mean it this way, but just so you know, like every time you've said that, it makes me feel like you don't really see me. Right? And then those healthy friendships are going to be like, oh, like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was landing that way. How can I assist in diverting that energy differently and show you that I do see you? And that's how we heal over time, is through noticing with ourselves, giving ourselves permission to let those little nonsense things show us what's really going on inside. But usually we tend to like be like, that's not worth it. That's not worth it. That's not worth it. And especially from the perspective of they're bringing up like law of attraction, like we want to minimize how negatively we're feeling throughout our day. Right. But they're saying like, again, the more we can be like I'll just kind of be like, wow, that was a big feeling. And then I don't feel bad about having that big feeling. I don't stay stuck in it, but I'm still going like, oh, okay, I see ya. And it actually feels good to be seen in my anger versus shutting it down.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're just kind of saying it's not a this or that, it's an and just when you honor the small feeling over that silly little thing that you're like, when do I know to address something? When do I know to handle something more directly? It will be informed by what you notice in the way you feel as it comes up. And then it's like, oh, is this person? And I feel like they're saying also it's okay to like notice it at first and then just observe. Like, is this a pattern? Was it a one-off thing, right? Like that just triggered me and showed me what's going on inside of me? Or is this a pattern of every time I'm around this person, I feel like this?
Yeah.
And then what do I need in order to feel like I'm being honored and that I'm honoring my own truth within that space?
Yeah. And this, for me, generally, I think journaling is like a way to sort of unpack, like, oh, there's something going on here. So that's the method I use. I guess that works.
That works. Journaling is great because it gets it outside of the body.
Yeah.
And it actually like gets it out of the nervous system and onto something. And sometimes when you read back that journal, you're like seeing words you didn't even know you felt.
Yeah.
And one thing they're bringing up for me, and I think this is just a collective like gee whiz, but it's a great like self-introspective tool. In my coaching program, they used to talk about, and one thing I've noticed in my coaching sessions is like, someone will say like, oh, I feel blah, 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 blah. And they'll use like a really big word around it. And then I'll be like, well, you said you hated that. And they'll say like, well, I don't really hate it. And I'll be like, but it's interesting that that's the word you chose. So there's something to that, right? When we're just kind of like off the cuff, like saying how we feel about something, usually, even if we're like, well, that's a little exaggerated, or I don't really feel that, that's actually usually pretty on point. And I feel like journaling lets us kind of unfilteredly kind of put out what's there so we can objectively observe it. And so I feel like they're saying that's why journaling is such a handy tool, because it gets it out of the body. It makes it a little less easy for us to judge it.
Yeah. Unfilteredly is a new word.
Unfilteredly. Listen. I can make up my own words.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm translating energy, damn it.
All right. So this is where we sort of divert from the less personal, and these are just ones that I'm kind of like, let me ask about these.
Curiosities.
Yeah. Is it true that as a person grows spiritually, that their egoic side grows as well? Like you were talking about the mirrored aspects of things. And I suppose the next question is a part of that. And is there a point to where you sort of finally get beyond the ego, or mostly,
Yeah. So it's funny because like the very first thing they're giving me on this is that we tend to view this as like a hierarchy because we're trained to look at it that way. So we're looking at it as like, as I evolve spiritually, we're literally picturing ourselves going up the ladder and like, increasing increasing in power. And so if we're saying then the ego does the same, we're thinking it just gets increased in power. Right. But they're saying it's just so much about, like, there is no, again, they're saying it's so hard for us to comprehend it, but it's not this linear hierarchical thing. It's just, they're just different like they're saying if we can view it as not even when we say the word spectrum, what we tend to picture is like the light spectrum where it's like little numbers to big numbers, right? So but they're saying if it was just like, and they're even saying numbers themselves are hard to even, because we measure our frequency in numbers, but on the other side, and like in the truth of the core of like what this entire reality is made out of, there is no differentiation between like, you know, a -3 particle and a 749 particle. Like it's just, they're just there. So I feel like they're just kind of saying it's not even so much like, they're kind of giving me the phrase like the ego is always going to play the same games, but it's just going to meet you where you are. So like as you spiritually evolve, the ego is just going to use that as fodder for, which is why you get like people who are like gurus who might actually understand. They might be like crazy, insane manifestors. They might be like very, like the stuff that they're saying can be like so in alignment with higher spiritual truth, and they know it. And there's also their ego telling them that they're better than other people because they know it. So it doesn't detract from, but I think they're giving me, for me, it's so much more about just the awareness of it. And so I feel like what I want to say is there are very few people that will transcend their egos. And those are like the, you know, Sadhgurus, those like,
Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah. Like very, like what I want to say is they're kind of giving me, and they're not saying there's anything wrong with it, but they're saying that's not necessarily the experience that we all came here to have. And so we kind of treat that as something to attain, and think that we're not far enough. And again, they're saying it's very hierarchical in our perception of it, but they're saying it's just like saying like one person might have chosen to experience being a child of a divorced home versus another might have a put together family. One is not actually necessarily better than the other. They just offer different experiences. And so I feel like, and they're saying like one of the things about ego is that it will use your desire to transcend ego as something that fuels it. And so they're saying like, if we can let ourselves off the hook of like, that's not the goal. My goal is to just be aware of it. And again, the ego is actually a helpful tool. The ego is what helps us experience this reality.
Well, isn't the ego kind of like it helps us experience it, but isn't it in a way like the driving force? It's sort of what makes us uncomfortable enough to want to spiritually grow.
Yeah. And it kind of, what I want to say is it differentiates us and like gives us what I understand to be the ego to be. And that's kind of what they're giving me right now. And again, I want to say they can only present this to me from my current understanding of ego. So someone like Eckhart Tolle is going to be able to talk about this very differently than the information I can bring through on it, because they can only give me energy I could even begin to relate to. But what I understand about it is it does make us uncomfortable, but it is the tool that creates a sense of individuality and separateness within us. Part of what's unique about the earth experience, from what I've been told, is that we come here to experience separateness. Because when we're on the other side, it's just cosmic consciousness all together, never separated. And so again, because we tend to judge the experience of separateness, it's actually such a unique experience that I think a lot of us incarnated to have. It's like, that would be weird. What does that feel like? And so we come in like, what would it mean to be like, I'm the only energy and God of my reality. Whereas on the other side, everything is co-creative all the time. And I do think it's an illusion of separateness, but like from everything I've ever heard and seen, our free will is honored. So there is a separateness. And so but I feel like the ego is the vessel through which we're allowed to experience that. And where I see someone like Eckhart Tolle, he's living in spiritual bliss all the time, but not all of us. And I'm not saying we all came here to be like, man, just can't wait to suffer. But like, I think there is still value in all of the steps in between. And I don't know, from everything I've experienced, I don't know that all of us were meant to transcend our egos in this lifetime, because that may not have been what we planned.
Yeah.
That may not be like, what I want to say is I relate more to teachers who are talking like, you know, I'm in the mud with you. This is where I'm at on my journey, and this is what I'm seeing, versus like, I love the teachings of Eckhart Tolle and of Sadhguru and Muji and all of these high level spiritual teachers. And there's a limit to which I can relate to them where I am right now. And it's like, I get it, but it's hard to click it in sometimes. And I'm not living in that awareness all the time. So I think there's like, what I want to say is there's benefit to having people at all different levels of that ego and soul balance. But I also think, like, again, like, if we came here and we're like, I just want to be so immersed in the earth world, like, I just think it'll be really great to experience full separateness, or like, I just know I have some really like deep soul learning I want to do. Transcending the ego doesn't actually let us suffer. If suffering was part of something, and I'm not saying again that we're never meant to work on that and create a better life. I think one of my favorite readers says, and they're bringing it up for me, the pain pushes until the vision pulls. And so I feel like if we know we're coming in at a certain level, we know pain is a catalyst.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah.
The ego is the catalyst in a way.
Yeah, and our stuckness in that ego. And again, every round of spiritual expansion is not necessarily, what I've noticed is my ego is still very much around. It's just a disassociating from that being the only voice or the truth. So rather than seeing it as like, I shouldn't have that in there at all, it's just, I hear it and it's just babble, right? And so I feel like they're saying it's just as we evolve, our relationship to the ego changes. But I think that the reason we're able to experience the earthly experience is because we have that ego filter. But it doesn't have to rule our consciousness necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. That's cool. That's good.
But again, like someone who's fully enlightened and has transcended their ego might have a very different thought on that.
Yeah. Okay, so next, this is a little off topic, not off topic, a new topic.
You prepared us. We're wherever we want to go now.
Yeah. Okay. Does spirit give us answers that they know we're going to have to work out over time? So they give us answers that are like a little bit too advanced in a way, and that we have to like keep striving until it like sort of clicks in, and it's like, oh, this is what they were talking about.
Yeah. So the phrase they're giving me on this is seeds planted.
Okay.
So rather than it being like, man, you just give me this information and I have no idea how to work with it, they're planting a seed.
Yeah.
And those do grow over time. And the metaphor they were just giving me is they're showing me like a science experiment. So like when we're in class, like we'll go over like, this is what photosynthesis is. This is the like book knowledge around it. And while the concept itself might be kind of like, okay, maybe, right? Then we're guided through a series of hands-on practical experimentation, and photosynthesis is a horrible example for this. I'm clearly not science-minded, but but they're just saying like we'll learn about that process through the book. Someone will explain it, but it might go a little over our heads. But then over time, watching as the physical experiment plays out step by step, then we solidify and understand that knowledge deeper. So they are saying like it's not that they're always giving you stuff you're ready for. But just because we don't consciously understand it with our logical brain doesn't mean I'm literally getting that it's not sinking in on a cellular level. Like there's truth that like there are times where, like, I don't know if you've ever had, and what they're referencing for me is, I don't even have a specific example, but I can tell you it's happened to me multiple times, where like I'm hearing something and I've heard the same phrase over and over and over again. But then one day during one period of my life, during one like phase of my healing, I hear it again and it just strikes that chord differently. Mm-hmm. That's when like they're saying that's the sproutling. That's when all of those seeds that have been planted,
it sort of breaks the surface a little bit,
because they've had to be nurtured through the experience we've been having in order for us to fully understand it. And so like one thing they're referencing is in the There's No Wrong Turns episode I did, like so often we had to take that wrong turn in order to understand like how an energy feels or how something plays out, or like the phrase they keep bringing up is, and we've talked about this, is that the trying to have a positive experience is a negative experience. And trying to have in accepting and embracing a negative experience is actually a positive experience. So like if we don't have the opportunity to understand like what, because we spend so much of our lives like resisting negative feelings and things we don't want to happen, like we may need, like, someone might say that and we'll be like, yeah. I mean, I could see that. But until you have the experience of like, all of this is happening, there's nothing I can do about it. And okay. And you feel that surrender and the embrace of this is okay. And I don't have to change it. That's what sinks into the body on a physiological understanding of what that phrase meant. So I do think we're always getting answers, and they're literally giving me the word coding. And again, this is not necessarily my forte, but they're just saying like literally they're giving me the phrase words or spells. So it's like words or spells. So when we're hearing them, we don't necessarily have to consciously have a reference point for them, but they're working their way through us because energy is energy is energy. It's permeating your very being. And so when certain downloads or things come through that we're like, I don't necessarily fully understand that, but I feel like it's just something that what I want to say is there's an unraveling, there's an unfolding over time. And I feel like they're saying so much of the spiritual process is like, we're always just trying to figure it out. So much of it is just saying like, I don't have to know. It's just unraveling. But that usually makes us uncomfortable because we're told, you better know or you're going to get messed up. You better know or you're not going to be able to work with it. Like, and they're saying it's so much more about trusting yourself to, I have this information and when it's time, it's time. And one thing they're referencing for you specifically is you were talking about the tracks that you're like, okay, I've either got to like just say like they're never getting used or I have to like do something with them. They're saying, or they could sit there and one day you're like, I think it's time. Oh, it goes on this album. It was waiting for this. It was waiting for that. Or I want to like, maybe use it, like splice it up and put it in another track that I thought it was its own thing, but it actually wants to be part of something larger collective. Right?
Yeah.
So they're saying like where we kind of get into the, like, I have to know what to do with it. It's so much more about trusting your own internal guidance system and trusting the timing of it's there. And if it's supposed to be something more, if I'm supposed to understand something more about it, I will in the perfect timing.
Right.
And the more we can surrender to I have no idea. And again, let that be okay. They're saying that's where just all of this freedom of expansion of possibility comes in. But they are giving you answers. Yeah.
Well, it's just interesting because some of the readings we've done before, you'd said, or information came through that I'm sort of like, okay, like kind of get it. But then it would be weeks or a month later. And then it's like, then that thing kind of hits, like you were talking about, it hits in a different way. And that's the sprouting, I guess, of it,
Yeah.
So.
But it's been working its way through that whole time.
Yeah,
and just kind of sitting, like what they keep showing me is they're giving me the word digesting.
Yeah.
It's literally, they're showing me like just turning around in your sacral center, just kind of, it's just bumping around in there until it's time for it to like be like, and ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
and again, they're saying even that like will unfold probably another layer and another layer.
Right.
And it's a catalyst for other layers unfolding, but they know the perfect time to plant the seeds because usually the experiences between the seed planted and the sprouting moment of like, aha, there's stuff happening in the interim that's helping us to understand that, which is why we're able to have the aha. But it's like, again, being given like, okay, we're going to quiz you in 3 months on this, but we're going to present you with the concepts. We're going to do a hands-on experiment, and then we're going to review, and then we're going to have the quiz.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you're getting the answers, but it may just be a little bit more drawn out.
Gotcha. Cool. So one thing, there's a bunch of stuff that came up while you were talking. One question is, I've been kind of like warned through different individuals through the time about having energy work done on your body. And you really need to be careful about who does energy work on you and all of that kind of stuff. So is that true? Is it possible to have someone do energy work on you that's maybe they're in a bad place or they have malintent, and then that can cause you to go down a bad road? Or is that true? And if so, how do we avoid it or whatever?
Yeah. So very first thing that I'm feeling very inclined to just shift is they want to take all of the fear out of this.
Okay.
Like what the very first thing they're giving me is there is no energy work that someone could do on you that you could not undo.
Okay.
Right? It's your energy. You decide what comes in and you decide what doesn't. So they're giving me a couple different practices for this type of thing, because they are saying energy work can be very helpful. And what we tend to do is, out of fear, we kind of section ourselves off and expect ourselves to do our healing work completely alone. But energy work is a form of allowing another person to assist you through their own heart energy. So what they're saying is, because it's their own heart energy, you just want to make sure that you're feeling in resonance with that person's heart. Because again, someone can only meet you as far as they've met themselves. So if you're asking for healing around, let's just say, abandonment, and you're like, I need some energy work around that. If this person hasn't really been willing to look at or deal with their own, they can't really go in and move a lot of that, because they can't relate to the energy of that.
Oh, I see.
That wound, because they haven't quite met themselves there yet.
Yeah.
And there are people that what I want to say is, we're talking about like also the egoic gurus. They're like, let me go in and get that for you. What I want to say is, I feel like there's a couple markers that they're asking me to bring up around how you can tell whether or not someone is in alignment for you. Okay. Because they're saying and again, just know you can always, you might feel a little off if you let someone who's not in alignment do energy work on you, because it is an energy exchange. But they're saying it's really no different than like there are some people that I will hug after a reading, and there are some people that I won't, because I know I can feel whether or not that person is, what I want to say is, if you feel like someone's trying to push their energy off on you, I would say that's someone that I would not want energy work from. If I feel like this is someone who's showing signs of taking ownership for their own energy and for their own sphere, right? If it's someone like, oh, I just can't go anywhere because I feel overwhelmed, and like I just can't be in Publix because I'm an empath, right? To me, I'm hearing, oh, this person is still working out how to use their energetic boundaries and become aware and accountable for their own energy center, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's just, and I don't feel like you can hold space for my energy because you're struggling to hold space for yours, right? So there's some markers just to look at, like, do I feel like this person is grounded and centered in their own energy, therefore can hold space for me so that I can allow them to hold my energy as well. But there's also markers of, sorry, they kind of like sucked stuff out of my head. Give me 1 second. It always comes back around when I start talking again, but sometimes I'll go down a rabbit hole and it'll take a minute to come back. One thing they're talking about is using your own discernment. So I do feel like they're saying it is okay. And I feel like this is part of it too, is like, we never want to make someone feel like we're questioning their abilities or that we're being rude, right? But it is okay to vet someone and do a little bit of like, tell them like, hey, I just want to make sure we're a right fit. Can we get on the phone for just 5 minutes and you kind of tell me what you do, and really feel into whether or not you feel aligned with that person when you're on the phone. And I'm hearing it's so important just to trust that your own energy is going to be the greatest indicator of whether or not you're in alignment. So if you feel kind of tense and uncomfortable, or you're kind of like, I don't know, maybe I should just, if you're having to justify it at all, what I want to say is, if you don't get off the phone or that interaction with that person and just feel like, okay, that feels really good, then I'd say it's just not the right one. Right? It's just like a therapist. Like, you just want to make sure that you resonate. That's all. Right. And then there's also the, what I want to say is it's just they're just giving me feeling your own intuition around whether or not someone is a right fit. And they're wanting to say, and if we go to someone that maybe we find, oh, that was not a right fit, that is still okay, because we're learning how to use that discernment moving forward, and maybe a turn we have to take. But I feel like they're also saying energy work, you can set your own boundaries as well. So one thing I always do, I go to a local meditation, and on some of the nights, the person will go around and do like basically mini Reiki healings on everybody. I don't necessarily always want this person's energy. However, I can still recognize that they might have something to offer. So what I'll do is I'll say, Spirit, like, just please allow me to receive anything that's in my highest and best good to receive, but also just block out and filter anything that's not. So it's not a total yes or no. It's just about, what I want to say is, in order to use that strategy, I would just say, just make sure you're someone who's very comfortable in setting energetic boundaries. And again, for me, setting boundaries with the spirit world is what I do for a living. So I'm very comfortable with trusting when I set that boundary, it will be held. Whereas if someone's like, if you're kind of like, okay, like, I don't want to receive anything, and if you're feeling unsure about that, what I would say is that's probably not your method yet. But I would say, like, you can lean into that as you get more comfortable setting boundaries. But what I think is so important to mention about energy work is that it is your energy. Nothing comes in without your permission. And usually if we're taking on an attachment, if we're taking on energy from someone else, from our environment, it's because something in us hasn't set that boundary and hasn't necessarily figured out how to decide what we allow and what we don't allow. And again, we're always going to have slip ups. Like every once in a while, I'll pick something up from work and it's like, I'll go a couple days of feeling really irritable and just kind of like, what is going on with me? Before I realize like, oh, I think I picked something up. And then I'll do a quick cleansing or an energy work, or I'll burn some sage, or I'll, do like a chakra energy grid or whatever I feel like I need to do. And then I go about my day. But I feel like we kind of put such a strong narrative on the what I want to say is the repercussions of bad energy. But like energy is energy. You can send it. You decide what stays, you decide what goes.
Yeah.
So you can set those boundaries.
That's a much more like empowered feeling take on it.
Yeah. And I find that that's like the biggest thing that I think even hinders people with opening up their intuitive abilities is they don't want to like see something they don't want to see, and they're afraid of what will come through. Like I've set the boundary from the very beginning that like if it is unnecessarily scary, gory, I don't tolerate things coming and waking me up at 3 a.m. Like I set that from the very beginning, and I have never had that experience. And again, on occasion, I might have something not so great, kind of come into my energy. But once I clear it, I clear it.
Yeah.
But there's you are the sovereign being. You have free will. So you decide what stays and what goes. So I think when it comes to energy work, it's about using your intuition and your internal guidance to feel out which practitioner you trust. And what I want to say is you'll feel a relaxation in your body when it's with the right person. You won't feel the need to show up a certain way. It'll be, I trust you to hold the space for me. Thank you. And you'll feel your body relax. If it's not that, I would say it's either not the right time or it's not the right practitioner. But you got to find the one that resonates for you.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. It's just always something that because people will put their fear into you through their words or whatever about something. So it's something that I always kind of wondered about.
Yeah. And I find with spirit, they always want us to take the empowered approach.
Yeah.
Like they don't want us to feel like we have to walk around scared of what someone else might do to us and what someone else could make us feel. And like, it's like we're giving away so much of our power. And again, it's like, does that feel right for you?
Yeah.
And if it's then trust it. And again, and if you find like, okay, maybe I wouldn't repeat that, there's nothing that you can't, get, what I want to say is like undo. Not that anyone can like permanently do something, but like there's nothing that you can't be like, oh, that wasn't it.
Set it down.
Or again, if I say like, oh, now I know what I'm looking for. And if you feel like I think I need another energy healer to like remove it, then you know what you're looking for. And tell them like, this is what happened. What would you recommend? And again, I always recommend like a consultation call or something like that, just to make sure you feel good about it. And what I want to say too, just adding in, is like, this goes for any spiritual mentor, reader, energy worker, because all of them, even massage therapists, all of that is energy exchange. It's just different forms of it. But like through a reading, we can shift a lot of energy without ever touching, right? Like just the word, because words are energy and they're permeating your being. Energy work is energy being shifted and permeating the being. So either way, there is a soul to soul connection happening. It's just a matter of, is that the energy exchange I want?
Right.
So I would use that same philosophy no matter who you're working with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool. So I'm kind of wondering about my eyes, my physical eyes. I had a retinal detachment in the left eye. The right eye, I'm not sure if it's showing signs of the same thing. Is it something I need to take care of on a medical level? Or is it possible that I can just, that it will heal itself, or, so I don't know.
So one thing they're giving me is that any kind of physical healing is possible, but usually our beliefs around it, because it's really hard to like just be like, oh, like I can just miraculous. Like we don't see what I would say is a lot of like miracles happening day in and day out because most of our belief systems don't align with that. So I do feel like they're saying there are things you can do that would assist that over time. And I'm just going to bring this up because they keep bringing it up for me. It's something I thought about because I have terrible eyesight. I never did it. But they're showing me like Herkimer diamonds are actually really, they can improve eyesight is what they're giving me. And if you put some in like an eye mask or something, you might be able to set the intention to heal your eyesight while you sleep or something. I don't know. They're bringing that up. So take it as it resonates and do what you want with that. But I do feel like they're giving me, for you, peace of mind is just because I feel like they're kind of giving me a little bit of sometimes when we're like wondering about something, but we don't really want that to be true. We'll kind of like not go to the doctor to get it looked at. We'll like kind of push it off. I feel like they're saying for your peace of mind and being able to fully understand what is, I feel like they're just saying like, if you're worried about it, just go. Like, and again, I'm the same person. I'm like, I don't want them to tell me that's what it is because then I have to like accept that that's what it is. And I don't, what I want to say is I don't necessarily feel like that's what's happening, but I feel like they're just giving me for you that's peace of mind because they're asking me to just share, like, I'm not a medical medium. That's not my strong suit. But I don't feel like they're giving me any strong cause of alarm here. But I do feel like they're saying because you're sensing, and sometimes like our own like little like, is the first thing that tells us, maybe I should go get it looked at before something gets worse. Or maybe I should, just for my peace of mind, go and get something checked out because I'm just my own, like, what I want to say is whether it's your worry system or your internal guidance system. And when it comes to stuff like this, it's really hard for us to tell which is which because they do feel very intertwined. And I think sometimes when we have a really hard time figuring out what's our fear and anxiety system versus our like internal alarm system, because that internal alarm system can be associated with worry and anxiety as well. So I feel like they're just saying when you start to feel like, if something just feels a little off, I feel like they're saying the sooner that you go and like just get, what I want to say is especially for eyes, because it's not something we can usually self-diagnose. They're just kind of giving me like, just go and see somebody. But I also feel like there's this, they're going to bring up the energy work for you as well here, that there might be actually some interesting energy work around this that could happen. But I feel like they're just saying they want you to just to understand, because they're saying once we understand what's going on, we're able to identify what energetic aspect might be playing out into that, what I want to say, the cause. Because everything that's happening in the body is an energetic manifestation.
Right.
So I feel like they're saying when we understand what's going on, we tend to be like, I don't want to put any focus into the problem. I just want to like fix whatever's going on. They're saying by understanding what is misaligned, we're able to attribute the energy behind it. So what they're referencing for me is, are you familiar with Louise Hay's Heal Your Body, Heal Your Life or whatever? So it's like, what's the association with the retina? Right? What specific function within the eye does that form, and what might, and they're also saying like right and left also plays a difference in like if it's our feminine or our masculine expression that might be having the trouble, right? So I feel like they're just saying like when we understand like, oh, this is the part of me that's struggling, right? It's like, well, my right knee is giving me problems, but I don't want to go get it looked at. They're like, well, if you find out it's like the certain tendon within the knee, what does it do? Like, well, it holds it together or something, right? It's like, oh, maybe like, and if it's on my right side, like my masculine side is trying so hard to be in control and hold everything together to stabilize myself. So where is there some awareness or some energetic healing and internal healing and offerings I can make to myself that might start assisting in moving that energy, and in compilation with that, finding maybe a skilled energy healer that can hold some space for you to not have to know how to do it all. Because there is also something when we're like, that just feels a little outside of my depth. We're going to a professional. What I want to say is I know, myself, and a lot of people who might align with this podcast would be maybe not so, what I want to say is like leaning into traditional medicine facilities. But there are some ways that they can at least let us know what's going on. And then we can kind of take that knowledge back with us. But they are giving me the phrase knowledge is power. So whether it's like, oh no, all is good, or it's something else, or if it is a repeat of that, then you can get ahead of it versus they're showing me, I know you've told me the story, but the last time it's like, it got really extreme before there was what I want to say is an intervention.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're just saying just the earlier you get it looked at, the better. Okay. Because then you'll know what you're working with. But I feel like they're saying just get the knowledge, then you can find the alternative solutions. But again, I'm not feeling like alarm bells going off or anything crazy. But I feel like they're just saying in this, by being like, I'm kind of feeling that, let me go and see. I feel like they're just kind of giving me, for you, it's like, that's also a way to kind of start noticing when it's our internal alarm bell versus our fear from the past type of energy. Because you're going to be able to start, what I want to say is create reference points of what it felt like each time.
Okay.
Cool.
So then that kind of leads me into, like I mentioned, the Joe Dispenza supernatural. So a lot of talk in the book is that they've found, and this is all like scientifically backed up stuff, which is helpful to me, because like if there's a study and they've shown repeated results, then like, okay, that just helps me kind of
trust
it. So it's through certain meditations, then you take stuck energy from the body and you're able to reclaim it almost. And it's like, and that was the lower 3 chakras. When the energy's stuck in there, it's not getting in there. So you end up taking energy from your magnetic field. And then they show results of like, here's a student who went to their thing and learned these meditations, and here's their energetic field before, and it's patchy. And then here it is after the 4 days, and it's like this whole energetic field. So I want to begin these meditations. I want to begin to do this stuff. And for one, I guess the question is like, is that the right path? And then for two, the other part of that is that it's been difficult. So I've been waking up most days at like 6 to get my drum practice in before my day starts and the dog is up and the kid and all of that kind of stuff. I find that very rewarding. But now it's like, do I have to wake up at 5 in order to get an hour of meditation in before that? And then like, I don't know. And it feels like I'm tired a lot of the times because I feel depleted, like I'm not getting enough sleep. So it just feels like this, it's a tricky, how do I do all the things that I want to do and yet still get enough sleep and all of that.
Yeah. So very first thing they wanted to talk about is they gave me the phrase, there's a reason you're feeling called towards it. So I feel like that when you were saying, is it the right path?
Yeah.
If it's showing up and it's something we're going, oh, this really, and what I want to say is with the question that you just asked with the eye, I feel like they're saying like, that, like, I just kind of saw this like lean forward, like,
Okay, okay.
And so, because I feel like it is a practice of how to, again, reintegrate your own energy and use it to your advantage.
Right.
And so I feel like they're saying, like, again, as far as they're saying, like, all the roads lead to the top of the mountain. There's no right or wrong path. And that's where we can really get ourselves stuck. If you're feeling called and drawn towards it, there might be something there for you. And what they're wanting me to give you permission for is it may not mean, like, they're literally giving me the word, like, it may not mean you're like a disciple. Like, it might be more of a like, oh, there was like a truth in there or an understanding about energy and how it works in there that I'm like putting in my back pocket. Like, there are lots of practices I've been exposed to, but not all of them are ones that I carried on or implemented, but like they opened or shifted my mindset to something in a helpful way, or they presented me with information that might form the basis of some other things that I do, but even if that practice itself may not have been it. So I feel like they're just wanting to say, like, I'm literally hearing the phrase for you, like, don't read too much into it. Like, just when it feels natural and you're like, oh, I'm really curious and I'm into it. Like, I'm here and go down the rabbit hole. Like, just check it out and see what's there. But I'm also feeling like what they're giving me is sometimes we can be like in one example where I see this so much in my own life, but I think a lot of us do this is like, we see this new like diet and exercise plan and we're like, I'm going all in cold turkey tomorrow.
Yeah.
But like what we don't realize is like, we have a lot of resistance to some of those changes. Like, again, it's like, and what I heard you say and what they really were like ding, ding, ding about for you was you said like, I'm getting up at 6, I'm going to drum practice and I'm spending my time doing that because it's my time. And they're literally giving me the phrase because it feeds your soul to do that. And you're saying, I'm finding that so rewarding. And then they said, and then you started talking about this other thing that maybe you should be doing because it feels more important. Right. And you're going, yeah, but I mean, should I be getting up at 5? And like, they're just saying, just notice that your energy dipped when you started considering whether or not the thing that you're saying is so fulfilling right now and is actually really like you're loving it, when you're trying to add something to the routine that actually detracts from what's working right now. And they're saying it's not that you won't add these in, but I feel like they're saying sometimes we don't give ourselves that, like they're giving the words like the preparation phase of, okay, I'm noticing that I might want to create that change. I'm noticing that this is something I might want to incorporate. When I feel compelled, I'll go and I'll sit down and I'll do it and I'll figure it out over time. But sometimes we can get so much into that should and that pressurized mindset that what they're saying is actually increases resistance and makes us not want to do it more. But it's like also like, so it might be like, okay, if we're like, I'm going to implement this new diet and exercise routine, I'm going to meal prep and I'm going to go to the gym every day and I'm going to run a mile and I'm going to like, if you think about all of the changes you have to make in order for that to shift, like that's a lot of extra cooking. You might have to, they're showing me is like, I don't even have enough Tupperware in my kitchen for all that. Like, so there's all of these other factors that need to be considered. And like, we are going to go through phases where we have more or less energy to give. And it's so much more about, is where I'm spending that energy something that's nourishing me? And I feel like what they're giving me for you is that the drumming, when you were talking about it, they were literally just showing me your energy lighting up. And then as soon as you try to figure out how to work something else that you, I'm hearing, because we tend to, what I want to say is we tend to prioritize the things that are like growth mindset over the things that are play, over the things that are creative. But they're giving me like that creative energy is like the seat of our soul. And so if we're in that space, it's never detracting. And if anything, when we're in that space, we're really nurturing that and allowing that to be precedence, it actually fuels those other productive things. But we may be kind of waiting for the part of us that wants to do it to light up. And so if we're trying to just always force ourselves into where we think we should be or where we should be investing our energy, we're making it more obligation. We're making it more, they're giving me the phrase like the world has so much pressure in it. The last thing we need is to pressurize what we're doing to try and make our lives better. And so when they're giving me like one thing, I've been noticing is just like, I've been trying to slowly change my diet over time. I've always been the person that's like, starting tomorrow, no sugar, no this, like the gym, like I've always tried to do it. Yeah. I've always tried to just go all in, overnight. And what I find is A, it never sticks. And B, I usually end up feeling like crap about myself because I'm setting a standard of like something that just my body, my spirit, my mind was not prepared to make that leap. Right. But what I'm noticing is when I started to go like, man, I'm eating a lot more sugar than I'd like to, I just would notice like, okay, I'm still going to do it, but I'm going to just watch it and just be aware of it.
Yeah.
And just that overtime awareness, like I've been eating healthier for the last like 2 months than I think I have in my entire adult life. And I didn't actively try. It's just starting to sound good. I'm like, I don't really want all the mac and cheese and the all this heavy things. And I don't want the processed foods as much. I don't want the pizza. I'm actually wanting and craving like lettuce wraps and like shit that I was like, I would have never wanted to eat that before if I had the option. But it's because I'm noticing like it just feels better over time. But it's just the awareness of this is where I am. This is where I am. This is where I am. And once I'm noticing where I am, I'm able to more consciously go, does that actually sound good? And then it's like, actually, no, I want watermelon or I want this or that actually is really what I'm craving. But there's no judgment around it. It's just like what sounds. And again, if it's like, no, that piece of cake sounds really good. Like,
then you have it.
Then I have it. And cool. It's like, or like, again, I'm like, I'm going to a bakery this morning. I freaking love guava quesitos. Like, I'm going to get one. You know what I mean? And then tonight it's like, I'll figure out what I want to eat based on what feels good in that moment, based on where I am. So I feel like they're just giving me when we're changing habits and we're trying to add something into our routine. It's so much more about being like, oh, I'm noticing that I might want to add something new. Yeah. And then just let it slowly integrate where it wants to. Because when it's time to be like, okay, I'm committing to that, it's going to feel so natural. It's not going to feel like this stretch. And what I want to say is from what you said, I could just feel the stretch energy there. Yeah. And they're saying there's expanding, but where does expansion start?
From the center.
Just in our awareness. Just like, oh, I see it. I see that. Or, ooh, this makes me feel hopeful. This makes me feel empowered. This makes me feel like this, like, cool, I'm noticing that. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to do something about it right away. So I feel like they're saying just when we give ourselves some space to, and again, I feel like they're saying, especially when we're still prioritizing what we're currently doing that feels really good, and that actually is feeding us, that's where we really thrive.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're just saying when we take the pressure out of it is when we're actually able to make the changes. And I just keep hearing the word shoulds. Like I use it on this podcast all the time. And I know you probably hear me say it, like, stop shoulding on yourself.
Yeah.
Like anytime we're saying should, there's an outside pressure that's running the show.
Yeah.
And that's just when we're like, oh, I'm not listening to me.
Right.
What do I feel like I have the bandwidth for right now? And if right now, and what I want to say is just at the time that we're recording this, so it's, God, I don't even know the date. It's April of 2023.
Yeah.
End of April. Everybody's energy is tired right now. So I just feel like I wanted to say that right now. It's a collective. We're in eclipse season. Like there's a lot of energy moving around. We're all tired. So we don't have a lot of, and we're in a Mercury retrograde. Like there's a lot of just what I want to say is celestial movements that are geared towards pull back a little and review, pull back, get more rest. So if we're tired, that's not the time to add another routine, but it's a great time to become aware of what is and isn't working and what we're doing and allow it to shift when the energy resumes. But it doesn't mean we never create change. It just means I'm not going to like shove it down my own throat.
Yeah.
That's all. Gotcha.
I think I'm about out of time.
All right.
So that's awesome. That was really insightful. I'm definitely going to listen back to this and kind of.
Yeah. Me too.
There's a lot to take in there. And sometimes it's like when it's happening, it's a little difficult for me to take it all in because it's kind of so much information.
Yeah.
But that's why it's good that these are recorded. So
yeah, and I always say give a reading, get a reading. So, and I don't ever remember what's going on when because I just kind of have to not judge it. But I always go back and listen to the recordings, and I'm always like, that's good stuff, and I have to apply it into my own life because I'm definitely. Again, we're all in this boat together. And so it's just nice to thank you for bringing your questions and your vulnerability to the table here and letting us all kind of get a peek into your psyche that really, in the end of the day, just brings us closer to understanding our own. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Good. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I will see you on the next episode of Practically Spiritual Podcast, where we are resuming our tips for living practically spiritual. We're on tip number 4, which is kind of actually in alignment with what we just talked about, but it's going to be where you are. So I'm really excited about that one. It'll be juicy, and I will catch you on the next episode.